I'd like to call the City of Apache Junction council meeting to order. Invocation will be led by Krista and the pledge by Braden.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege of being gathered here today to do the city's business on behalf of our constituents. We ask that each and every one of us be guided by you, Father, in the decisions that we make that affect others, and not by any personal agenda or ego. We ask to be humble in our disagreements, and that we never forget that we are here to serve the people of this beautiful community. Father, we ask for your special protection for all of our first responders, those serving in our military, and all of their family members. We ask that they be brought home safely each and every day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Vice Mayor Rizzi,
Present.
Councilmember Biggs,
Here.
Councilmember Evans,
Here.
Councilmember Gremmel,
Here.
Councilmember Nesser,
Present.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Here.
You have a quorum, Your Honor.
All the items approved with one motion for the consent agenda. No individual readings or titles will be done. If a council member wishes to remove an item and put it for further discussion, the request must be made prior to the approval of the consent agenda and be moved to new business, where it will be the first item addressed on the new business. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rizzi,
Yes.
Councilmember Nesser,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Biggs,
Yes.
Councilmember Gremmel,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Unanimous, Your Honor. Motion passes.
Okay. Oh, okay. There you go. Got to get over this a little bit more, okay? Learning process, I'm sorry. Okay, I have a proclamation here to be presented. The proclamation, Speak Up, Stand Up, and Save a Life Month. Whereas the Speak Up, Stand Up, and Save a Life movement presents an ideal opportunity to help bridge the gap between young people, our local community, government, and law enforcement in a positive way. And whereas our local schools are facing preventable suicides and tragedies that may include warning signs in a person or online, but bystanders and friends remain silent among the threats or cries for help. And whereas our young people can be empowered to report concerning posts or comments to school representatives or law enforcement, and the adults can receive training to help spread the message, it's okay to care enough to speak up, stand up, and save a life. And whereas more than 4,500 Arizona students from 157 public, chartered, private, and tribal schools have learned the message and created a student-led impact projects in their schools and communities, and have impacted over 400,000 youth in the state of Arizona. Therefore, I, Chip Wilson, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Apache Junction, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2021 as Speak Up, Stand Up, Save a Life Month. And
Mr. Anderson.
Krista Anderson, there she is.
Good evening, Mayor Wilson, City Council members, Mr. Powell, and guests. First of all, I want to thank you for adopting the Speak Up, Stand Up, Save a Life proclamation. As a member of the executive board of this organization, it is important that we engage our students in ways that will allow them to build the confidence needed to make a positive difference in the lives of others. Today, the students of AJUSD attended the Speak Up, Stand Up, Save a Life conference, geared to empower students in grades K through 12 to help peers in times of struggle. At the conference, it was emphasized that if one student is in trouble, another student needs to intervene and tell a trusted adult. The missed warning signs that seem to accompany every school tragedy oftentimes caused because a student did not want to snitch or tattletale. We are seeking to change the mindset and show students that everyone has the power to be a difference maker. By caring enough to come forward, their actions can save another's life. We have seen amazing stories that have saved lives of others. They are taking lessons learned at the conference and creating change back at their schools. Thank you for supporting this initiative. Thank you for the ongoing support of AJUSD. These are our kids, our community, and thank you for allowing us for them to reach for the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, announcements and current events from our council members. Braden.
So I have a couple here. So the Apache Junction Star Family event is going to be on March the 13th this year. This is a new event that both VFWs 9399 and 7968 are working collaboratively on to partner and honor our star families here in the Apache Junction, Gold Canyon area. Up at the top, you can see what the 4 star families are. So, of course, the Gold Star is those families who have lost a loved one due to combat. Silver Star was injured or illness as a result of combat. Blue Star are currently serving in the military. And the newest one, and one of the most important ones really, is the White Star, which is the loss through suicide following combat. So this is, like I said, jointly sponsored by both our local VFWs. That's going to be held on March the 13th. We're going to do a barbecue, dinner, lunch from 1 to 4 with some bands and things like that. It'll be a really great event. So if you do know of any current star families here in town, please get in contact with myself or one of the VFWs, and we will add them to our list. And if you would like to sponsor that or help to put that event on, you can certainly do that. This is going to be an ongoing event moving forward. So then the next one, of course, is our monthly First Friday, which it seems to more traditionally fall on the second weekend than the first weekend. But the February event is going to be on February 12th and 13th. It's down in downtown Apache Junction at Phelps and Apache Trail in the what is actually called the East Valley Shopping Center. Those of you may remember Old Bayless or Basha's there. So lots of a great weekend. The proceeds for that month are going to the Martin family, which is a local family who basically a stroke survivor, so some family needs there. Beyond that is the Lost Dutchman Days. So obviously we know due to COVID-19 that event has been canceled, but that organization is still raising funds for our kiddos here in the community and does great work. They are going to have a golf tournament on February the 6th. Yes, yeah. And raising money for our different local kids charities. And then last is just a reminder that this year's AJ Kids Idol, which is traditionally held on the last weekend of January, has been postponed. We will host it later on this year. So that's it.
Tito? Robert?
No.
Krista?
No.
No, sir.
Okay, I have a couple things here. First off, I'd like to, I attended the Rotary Foundation meeting, their 60th anniversary celebration at the Rotary Club, the Superstition Mountain, Apache Junction, and Gold Canyon Rotary Club. It was created in January 9th, 1961, so just a few years ago. It has been very active in our community, in our area. We received a little bit of history in their involvement and have been for the past 60 years. They're also involved in some of the Lost Dutchman days over the past 40 years as well. They presented some checks to the Superstition Food Bank, United Methodist Food Bank, Apache Junction School District, and the Friends of Apache Junction to be used by our police department for PEE, or PPE, excuse me, concerning their involvement with the virus. And definitely want to say thank you for their contributions to our community and continuing on. And the other thing I'd like to announce is this 23rd of this month, my wife and I are going to be celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary.
Yay, Peggy!
I think Peg deserves the award.
Yeah. She put up
She
with him.
pointed the finger at me, I saw that. It's been basically, overall we have two individuals that have learned to communicate. The biggest thing is communication. And we've started out quite young and have continued on. And she has been by my side. We've moved a lot through the military. As you can see, I've got my Air Force uniform on when we got married. And we went directly from the honeymoon to our next base. And then got a big announcement shortly after we got there. 1 week after we arrived, you're going back overseas and your wife's going to be home alone. And I did fight that and decided that I'm not going, and ended up staying. And yeah, we've had a few, I'll say, spats. The one I'd like to talk about is embarrassment on my part is we get into a discussion driving down the road. I have no idea what the discussion was about. Well, I got upset. I slammed the car into park as we're driving along, come skidding to a stop. I jump out of the car and I start walking. I'm walking. She has to move over into the driver's seat and drive. She could have left me there. But she kept there and stayed with me and convinced me to get back into the car and drive. And we've been that way ever since. So again, thank you, Peg. I appreciate you. I love you. And we're going to work for another 50 years.
There you go.
And oh, by the way, there's a table out back that has some candy, individually wrapped candy for, thank you, for everyone to kind of just my way of saying thank you to the community for helping me celebrate our upcoming 50th anniversary.
There's your candy.
And she was upset that she couldn't steal some when it was in here. Okay, city manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Bryant Powell, City Manager, and I just want to add my huge congratulations to 50 years of marriage and what an example that is for all of us. I know it takes tons of selflessness to make something like that happen, and we thank you, Peg, for letting us have Mayor Wilson for this time. Your Honor, tonight I'm very happy to introduce to you and to our community our new Finance Director, Leslie Duresh. And Leslie, if you'll come on up, I'll share a little bit about Leslie to everyone. She has a Master's of Public Administration. Her undergraduate is a BS in Economics. She is a Certified Public Accountant, CPA, and a Certified Government Financial Manager. She comes to us most recently as the current, or the former City of Scottsdale Finance Manager, Financial Analyst at Scottsdale, and then worked prior to that as a Senior Accountant at Arizona State University. She's also worked at other organizations. And, Your Honor, I'd like to introduce Leslie and turn the time over to you, Leslie.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, Mayor, council members. I'm really excited to come here and work with you all and with your community. I've really enjoyed my first 3 weeks here, and I'm looking forward to many, many more. he kind of covered everything about me, so if you have any questions or anything you'd like to see done in the future in financing ways, let me know.
Just welcome, and I appreciate other people who can add things up correctly.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. And one other item, I just wanted to make sure that we had a chance. Al, do you have, let's come up and give a brief, very brief update. We've had questions about vaccines in the county. While we're not the public health department, you all are starting to get a lot more questions about the different the lot of complexity here about the timing, where can we go, how do we get signed up, what if we don't have a computer? Al, maybe touch on some of those main questions.
So, good evening, Mayor Wilson, council members. Al Bravo, Public Information Officer for the city. We are a little over a month now into the vaccination campaign, if you will, that the state of Arizona and, of course, the rest of the country has been involved in to try to combat the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And there has been a lot of questions about how you go about and what you do and who's eligible and all of that stuff. Those first 6 weeks or so. I will tell you, just to make this very, very brief and very short, it is very obvious that there is still not enough vaccine to go around and not enough locations in which to distribute that vaccine. So as long as everybody is understanding of that, I think it sounds like we're just all going to have to be a little bit patient. But for those of you who are not aware, the first two groups of folks who were identified as the priority to get the vaccine, which is essentially healthcare workers, folks in long-term care facilities, and then first responders, teachers, and some other folks that are sort of deemed essential, are in the process of getting vaccinated. The state has a couple of big campaigns going on. They have a big vaccination site now at the Arizona Cardinal Stadium out in Glendale. They have another one at the Phoenix Municipal Baseball Stadium in East Phoenix. And another one in the East Valley, and along the same lines, Pinal County has identified a couple of places to also distribute the vaccine. One of them will be the county health office, which is right across the street here off of Superstition in Idaho, but they will also be opening a couple other places to distribute the vaccine, including Horizon, the new Cigna clinic, and the Safeway store, which is over off of Meridian and the trail. So watch for information on all of that. The best places I can tell you to go is azhealth.gov, which of course is the State Department of Health Services. And if you want a little more local for Pinal County, then please go to pinalcountyaz.gov. Right on their homepage, it links to this page and will show you where to register. And I can tell you, there are no appointments that I know of for anybody to get a vaccine for several weeks, well into February. As we kind of all knew, but now it's a little more real, and so people are trying to figure that one out. Also, for our viewing public as well, here's a couple of phone numbers from the state that can also help you to try to get along and navigate that particular process, because it is really, really tricky. And there's lots more details. If anybody has any questions, they're certainly welcome to call my office. Obviously, the county health department are the folks who are handling this on the ground, so we try to refer everybody to them, but we can certainly answer a little bit looking up towards that. Fair enough?
Thank you very much, Al. I just wanted to also say that our library is ready to help support anyone that may need access to internet or signing up. It looks like most of these are being done that way. So Pam has already reached out, and if we hear any other names of folks who are not mobile or don't have access, we want to help us support that process.
Al or Bryant, either one. I'm hearing a lot of concern from the community in regards to our winter visitors currently getting the vaccine, while we have full-time year-round residents that aren't. I know obviously they're here and they can sign up and get those appointments and absolutely do, but is there a way or mechanism to pass up the food chain that we're prioritizing Arizona residents?
We identified that and addressed that with the state and with the county very early on in this process. And partly because they were telling us that if you get the brand A, vaccine on the first go-round, you have to get brand A the second time. You can't get brand A and then brand B. And so part of our issue was, for those winter visitors who were coming down here, we wanted to make sure they were getting A, and what happens if they were going back, and the logistical issues with that too. But yes, there's certainly some concern there that those folks who are not here year-round are still getting vaccinated because it's happening right now. So yes, that has been addressed at the state and at the county level as well.
Thank you.
Your Honor, this concludes our
Thank you.
report.
Okay, public hearings, there'll be, number one is considering of ordinance number 1498, Amendment City Code, Volume 1, Chapter 4, Planning, Subdivision, and Zoning Fees.
Where is it?
Larry?
Good evening, Mayor Wilson, council members, Larry Kirch, Director of Development Services. So before you tonight is a public hearing and I don't really have a presentation, just to keep it short. These are fees by state law. We have to post these fees on the city website for 60 days. They were posted on October 22nd, so nearly 90 days ago. So essentially what we're talking about, when we've come back to you since I've been here, in 2016, we updated some of our planning and zoning fees. In 2019, we updated the fees when we adopted the new building codes, the 2018 ICC building codes. We amended our fees in 2019. At the time, we didn't know the pace that the state land trust might take with the land to the south. 98% of these fees relate to that land to the south in terms of community facility district creation, rezonings, amendments to those rezonings. We did add a couple of fees for, we get lately some applications where we have to do a site inspection of a group home. So this really just basically covers an inspector to go there for one visit. And then I mentioned some of you are new on the council. Again, welcome. We talked about, we have a lot of folks come to the counter where their plans are hand-drawn or they ask us to draw their plans for certain things. So we built in a fee here where we could create a site plan, a little drawing for folks to help them get their building permit. So that's that $30 fee. The rest of them all relate to the state land and the 8,100 acres roughly to the south of baseline for the formation of community facilities districts, master plan community zoning, and major and minor amendments to those, et cetera. So hopefully you've had a chance to review the staff memo and the ordinance, and I can answer any questions, and then we can open it up for a public hearing.
Okay,
So the annexation processing fee, that's for just land south, the state land?
No.
Or are those fees the same for any of the surrounding county islands up here within our borders?
That fee, I did not distinguish between just this area and other areas. If you want to make that an amendment, I know other cities charge an annexation fee, and Rudy's going to talk about that in a few minutes. And I think by the staff costs and time involved, for this particular case and many, this $1,500 barely covers, and Rudy's is basically doing this many hours over the last 3 weeks. So other cities, what they do, some cities, we talked about this in 2019, I believe, and we said we weren't going to charge a fee. Our neighbor to the west not only makes you pay the fee, but they actually have you bring up all your infrastructure to city standards before you annex into the city. So that's, I don't know that we want to go that far, but you see a lot of areas that get bypassed over or around for development happens around them. Now these folks, for some reason, water comes by, they want to annex, and then the city is forced to upgrade roads that are 50, 60 years old. So again, that's an example. Again, for tonight, if you just want to make this part of, we're annexing 6,200 acres for $1,500. So in the big scheme of things, it's not a lot, but if we were to annex, the area of Tomahawk and Southern down there, essentially, maybe all those homeowners, if you did it on a per household basis, it might be $5 a piece or $10 per parcel too. So, or we have $25 parcel, but that if you did a larger area, if it's one mobile home park that we have an area off of Ironwood. I think there's 4 mobile home parks there. All 4 would come in for $1,500 So it's really, I don't think it's an outrageous fee. I did want to mention these fees. We did look at other cities in the valley. I think these fees are comparable, and in some cases, they're actually, you know, lower substantially than other fees. We did look primarily at Mesa, because they are our closest neighbor, but there are certain fees in here that are, we think are lower than other cities, especially, I think, this MPC zoning fee. The other one is really set by state statute, the formation of a community facilities district. That we can't go higher than 15. That is set by statute. The rest of these are not.
It might have been nice to have the comparison for the new people on here to see what other communities have for their fees. The group home application, can you explain that? Is that gonna be for any group home application or just down south?
No, only where, yeah, I wanted to mix these two in there. That is where the building official has to go out and do a house inspection. So essentially, when you have a group home over 6, so our zoning code allows group homes up to 10 as an allowed use. But once it's over 6, we get involved with the fire department and egress, and if there's a pool, then we want to make sure there's a gate. So really, this is just a site visit for Dave Zellner, the building official.
Might need a little bit more information in the future, just to
Sure.
help the new people coming on.
Yes, yes.
Larry, regarding the MPC pre-application fee, the $2,500, does that cover all of those meetings? I would assume there would be more than one meeting for that, or is that per meeting that they have?
That is for any meeting that's called a pre-application meeting. In this case, we're just going to have one.
Okay.
But we do have 7 or 8 different departments involved. And again, the $2,500 is probably going to maybe be a break even for us. And that's really all we can charge. We're not supposed to make money on these fees. We do want growth to pay for itself. And then when you start involving the city manager, assistant city manager, city attorney, you know, planners, engineers, public works directors, that really is almost a break even.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, as a public hearing, would anyone like to speak on the item? Go ahead.
George Schroeder, 244 West Virginia. Evening, City Council, new people. I don't know what fees they're not making money with. They're not doing their job now. That's a fact. And so anytime they do something, they charge money only to go back to the same thing they were doing. Oh, tomorrow, next month, next year. The city is not benefiting from developmental services. There's only one group of people that are benefiting from this money and these obligations they're putting on us. He makes a salary, you make a salary, you make a salary. That's already in the budget. They don't have right to charge more money based upon what they got to do, what they got to do, what they got to do extra. Not there. He just said it. It's not his thing to make money. But what do you call it? He's making money for nothing. I put no.
Anyone else like to speak? I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion on ordinance 1498.
Your Honor. I move that.
Your Honor, if I may, before we go to a motion, I want to ask a question. And I've not done this before, but I want to know that our new people are comfortable and understand what each of these fees are. There's been no, as you go down the list, I just want to make sure that everybody understands what each of these fees are for. There's not been a description in the presentation, and so before we vote on it.
Having been on planning and zoning for 20 years, I know
Okay.
what's going on. Now, this is all brand new to me and to you as far as the master plan community, but I mean, I know what they are and why.
Mayor, yes. And actually, I had contacted Bryant and Matt, and we had some discussions about specifics on this, so I feel comfortable voting on this. Now, do I know everything? No, I don't, but I feel like I have a pretty good idea.
Okay, fair enough.
Same.
Thank you.
Okay, can I now have a motion on the ordinance?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that ordinance number 1498 be read by title only and the reading of the entire ordinance be waived.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Nesser?
Yes.
Councilmember Grumble?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Biggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rizzi?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Ordinance number 1498, an ordinance of the mayor and the city council of the city of Apache Junction, Arizona, amending Apache Junction City Code Volume 1, Chapter 4 Fees, Article 4-4 Development Service Fees, subsection 4-4-3, Planning, Subdivision, and Zoning Fees, repealing any conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and establishing an effective date and a revolving 60-month review period.
Roll call?
I need a second motion on,
Oh. Second motion?
Your Honor, I move that ordinance number 1498 as read by the city clerk be approved and adopted.
Second.
Councilmember Nesser?
Yes.
Councilmember Gremmel?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Biggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rizzi?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Motion passes, Your Honor.
Okay, discussion on proposed annexation requested by Dan Vano, representing D.R. Horton and the Arizona State Land Department of approximately 6,600 acres. Call on Rudy.
Rudy, do you have a presentation?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you know if it was pulled up?
It's in the Development Services Drive.
All right. Work session or council meeting?
Work session?
Your Honor, I just want to make us, if it's, Your Honor,
Yes.
can I just say a huge thank you to Rudy and his team and everyone involved to be able to bring this annexation. This is one of the biggest single events that's happening in Apache Junction that I've been a part of, that I'm very proud of. To be able to have the ability to plan for the future in this way with one single property owner, something that I've watched this community and many city councils, including this one and others, work through. And just wanted to say thank you, Rudy. And to Larry and everyone else that's involved.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, new members of the council, it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. My name is Rudy Esquivias, and I am the planning manager. My presentation is very brief tonight. We call this case case AN-1-20. It is an annexation, a proposed annexation of state trust land south of Elliott Avenue. It's approximately 6,600 acres, vacant state trust land. We have Elliott on the north side. We have the State Route 24 Fry Road alignment on the south side. To the west, we have Meridian, and to the east, we have the CAP Canal. That encompasses the plus or minus 6,600 acres. The applicant to the state was D.R. Horton. They are represented by Mr. Dan Bono, and he is also representing the State Land Department. In your packets, you have an authorization letter from the State Land Department to Mr. Bono to represent them in these proceedings as well. Brookfield Residential is D.R. Horton's development partner. The city, Larry alluded to it a little bit, the city developers and the State Land Department are working together on the Master Plan Communities document, MPC, that fee for the MPC, that's what it means, for the development of actually a larger property, 8,100 acres, part of which is already inside the city limits, north of Elliott. There are a lot of moving parts to this annexation. It's not just the annexation of the property. There's also intergovernmental agreements. There's pre-annexation development agreements with the developer and the state. there is a community facilities districts, there's the master planning for two separate properties. So a lot of moving parts, and we're also working with our good friends at the fire district, at the school district, with the sewer district and AJ Water Company. So a lot of folks involved in this process. The developers have purchased the first 4 square miles of this 6,600 acres. It's an area of about 2,800 acres in size. That's called the auction piece. And then the remainder of that 8,100 acres is called the retained piece. So as far as the annexation process itself, there are milestones established by state law that we have to follow. On December 22nd, we recorded a blank annexation petition with the Pinal County Assessor's Office. On January 19th, tonight, the City Council is holding a discussion on the annexation. You're not taking an action tonight. You're not approving the annexation tonight. It's just a discussion. Anybody who wants to speak up on the annexation is welcome to do so. And then in a couple of days, we can start circulating annexation petitioners to the owners of real and personal property in the annexation area. And then once we have gathered the necessary number of signed petitions, we will record those, and we will bring the annexation item back to the City Council for final approval. This process needs to be done within 1 year of January 21st, so in other words, January 21st, 2022. We did a lot of public outreach. We advertised in the newspaper. We posted the property, thanks to our good friends down in Public Works who made the signs. We sent public hearing notices to the chair of the Board of Supervisors, Pinal County Board of Supervisors. We sent public hearing notices to the applicants. We sent public hearing notices to all and any possible potential owners of real or personal property in the annexation area, mostly a lot of utility companies who may own facilities. It's not just land, it's also, you know, pipes and wires and facilities and cable and stuff like that. So they are considered property owners. And we also sent courtesy public hearing notices to our neighbors, to Mesa, to Mag, to CAG, to Queen Creek. So we did a very thorough mailing. This is a map of the proposed annexation area. And this line right here is our current city limits. The annexation area, the plus or minus 6,600 acres, is right in here. Once again, Elliott on the north, Meridian on the west, the SR 24 alignment / Fry Road alignment on the south, and the CAP Canal on the east. So that is the area that we are proposing to annex. And then this graphic here, it's a little preliminary, but this basically shows you the larger master plan community area, and then this 4 square miles plus right in here is the auction piece. So this is the part of the property that has been purchased by D.R. Horton, and this is the part of the annexation area that's going to get developed first, but master planning will occur for this entire area here. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have questions?
I do too.
I just have a clarification, Rudy, and a question. So the D.R. Horton folks are calling this Superstition Vistas? Or is that just?
Not yet, not yet. We're,
The much larger area, the 275 square miles, is what's been given the name Superstition Vistas. But this is part of it.
Top of the page.
Yeah, this is top of the where?
Top of the page where it says annexation narrative, December 8th.
Okay, yeah, it's part of the larger Superstition Vistas area. This is the first phase that would be developed as part of that larger area.
Okay, on the second page, it said, it is requested that the city provide the following services for the annexation property. And of course, it says the police, but it also says the fire and the school. Those really aren't
Right.
supplied by the city.
Correct.
And so I was, did that need to be clarified? And the fact that they said that Avalon Elementary is the closest, that not being part of the Apache Junction Unified School District, it's actually a charter school.
Correct.
So do we need to clarify?
I
So
don't think so. We're, like I said, we're working with a lot of other entities in this process. We sent Dr. Anderson an invitation to tonight's meeting. The developers are separately, and I perhaps with Bryant, talking to Dr. Anderson about, what's the school capacity. So they are all part of the process. Of course, Chief Farber, the sewer district, the water district. We also sent notices to SRP and Arizona Water Company and the wireless providers. They're all part of the process. And Joel and Bryant and Matt and myself and Larry, we're also working with the developers on these individual intergovernmental agreements and community facilities districts, which also involves the types of things that are all part of the process. Everybody's going to be involved.
I just want to make sure we start out correctly.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah.
but no, it takes so many people to make this happen.
Right.
Anyone else?
Mayor, I have a couple questions. So with the new fees that we just discussed, are the developers then paying that $1,500 fee to annex this property?
Yeah.
All of it? So it's $1,500 for 4 square miles?
No, for the
For
6,100
the
acres.
6,100,
Yes.
okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, and that, they are paying the 1,500?
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. And then earlier in your presentation, you had stated the kind of timeline is, tonight we're discussing it, the 21st we start accepting signatures and such. So will we not officially be able to annex the land until 2022?
No, we can annex the land as soon as we have gathered the necessary number of signatures, and let me define that a little bit. Basically, state law requires that more than 50% of the owners in the annexation area sign an annexation petition, and those owners must represent at least 50% of the land value. So now, obviously, in this case, you have one landowner who has the majority valuation, but the additional utility companies, if the Department of Revenue, well, actually, the Department of Revenue sent me a list of 12 possible additional property owners in the annexation area. So we would need at least 6 of those folks to agree to annex. Now, they may not all own personal property. That information has yet to come to us. We got the list of potential owners. The next thing that's going to come in is who owns what, if anything, and what is its value. And then once we have those numbers together, we can figure out how many signatures we actually need. Now, once we gather those signatures and we meet both of the criteria, theoretically, we can schedule the annexation for a council approval through an ordinance. However, the other thing that's going on is the MPC document, which is collaboratively being put together as well. According to the state's participation agreement with the developer, sorry?
What's the MP?
The master plan community document, the document that's basically going to be like the master zoning document for the area. Once that is ready to bring to council, the idea is to bring the annexation and the MPC document to you on the same night. Like we've done with other annexations, we'll do the annexation item first, and the next item will be the rezoning of the property. Same idea. So hopefully in the summer, we'll be coming back to you with the annexation and the MPC document.
Okay. And then in the attachment, and this may be going into what you were talking about with the master plan community, on the first page it talks about how everything is going to be assigned RSGR.
Yes.
Will we then have to go in and rezone that as we gain commercial and industrial and different styles of residential and all of that?
Right now, the existing zoning on the property is RSGR. Under annexation rules, when you annex a property, you have to give it an equivalent city zoning as to what the county had. But like I said, the very next item on the agenda would be the MPC rezoning, and within the MPC master plan community zoning, it's going to address the residential and the commercial and the circulation and the parks and possibly other facilities, all within the master plan community document. So it's not going to be separate zoning districts. It's all going to be part of one master plan document.
Okay. And then can you explain to me what DU is?
DU is a dwelling unit.
Thank you. And then something else that I noticed, and just for, I'm not totally sure on this, because again, talking about the school zones, so I understand we are in AJ Unified School District boundaries, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then it's talking, I believe it's on page 7, about needing to anticipate additional school zones being set aside. Do we know if AJ Unified is going to have first dibs on those sites? Or do we
Maybe
know
Brian
if
could better
a
answer that
potential, I mean,
question.
we might be opening ourselves up to more charter schools, which hurts our school district.
So we have some limited ability to dictate some of that. However, this is in the HAUSD district boundaries. It is their taxing area. Their actual boundary was set a long time ago prior to cities. Cities and towns actually, or school districts were set way before, and they don't have to go through this process. However, with the fire district, they will need to go through a process to annex, and so they're going to be up next in terms of in front of you and to go through that process. The developer has already reached out to AJUSD, wants to start a relationship there, and is indicated in every way that that's where they want to work with in terms of the ability to get schools going. That's kind of my update on that. It's still early on, but that's where they want to go.
Awesome, thank you.
Mayor, I have a question. So Rudy, and this may be a really stupid question, but when you're talking about the petitions and getting signatures from landowners, okay, but this is state land, who are these owners? Who is
Well,
this?
it would, the
Surrounding area?
owners of real and personal properties, so the State Land Department, D.R. Horton, plus utility companies who may own facilities in the annexation area. If SRP owns some lines and they have value, we would have to get their signature as well.
Okay, and we don't anticipate any problem in terms of getting,
The utilities have not been a problem in the past. They don't like to make or break an annexation, but if the majority landowner is on board, then usually they'll cooperate too.
very good, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on the item? Mr. Schroeder.
George Schroeder, 244 West Virginia Street. Wasn't this the big enchilada? This is Apache Junction, isn't it? Growing, 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 whether we like it or not. It's going to come from on down high, whether we like it or not. Isn't that right, Mr. Powell? So, this is Zionism on steroids. I'm not saying I oppose the annexation. What I'm saying is this is relatively short time for this type of process. And we don't even know if we're going to have it part of the school board. We don't know anything about the fire district, the water district. We don't know nothing about it. Don't you think we should have these locked in place before we say, okay? We're getting 2.9% of any proceeds from the Brookfield, which was the little partner, and they couldn't bring up the money, so they had to go to D.R. Horton from up on high to bring up the rest of the money to do so. This just smacks of Zionism. If they can't do it, oh, well, we'll give them $260 million, then they can't say no. I'm telling you, our managers are not all about our city. They are not all about our neighborhoods and our concerns. Their concerns are only about their people that they represent out of here, making that all at, 400,000 homes from now forever. That's what they're interested in, okay? Speaking of history, my streets haven't been worked on in 40 years. 40 years. Don't you think we ought to be taking care of our neighborhoods first? Instead of the pie in the sky for somebody else that has nothing to do with us? They're serving a different master. You don't get it. I congratulate Mrs. Grimmel on your election. We need you.
Thank you.
I want you to see this is my opinion, the corruption that is going on in this city. And these two gentlemen are doing it. They have been doing it, but don't worry, they're not the first. This has been going on for years and years. Their master is been here forever.
Stay to the subject. Stay to the subject and not.
Oh, I am.
Without doing personal attacks.
I'm not doing personal attack. This is
Yes,
for
you
sure.
are.
This is absolutely a fact. How many people have been charged for robbery and corruption in the city? Yeah. So anyway, I want to stop this. I want you to know who is in charge of the city. It's not you. It's not you. Make no mistake about it. So we need to look at this annexation and make sure that it's going to be our school district. That it's going to be our property. Apache Junction, District of Superstition Vistas, not the other way around, because that's the way they want it. This is their encroachment into Pinal County and our space, our freedom, our views of the mountains. That's what they want to destroy, and they will do it any way they can. I've been at this 40 years. I know these people I know them better than they know themselves, because the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. It's called Apollo Investment Corporation. That's who supplied the money for this annexation. Make no mistake about it.
All right, thank you. All right. I have to apologize. I didn't ask the applicant was here if they would like to say anything. I apologize for stepping over you.
No problem. Mayor Wilson, members of the council, Patrick Brown, VP of Land with DR Horton, Inc. Address is 20410 North 19th Avenue, Phoenix. I'm very excited about this project, and I just really want to say thank you to the staff. They've been amazing to work with so far. I think we're going to have a really great, long relationship with the city of Apache Junction, and we're excited to show you guys more, and there's going to be a lot more to come. So looking forward to creating a relationship with each and one of you and becoming a member of this community. Willing to answer any questions at this time, but there's going to be a whole lot more to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, I apologize. Okay, we'll go back to the public hearing. Yes.
Charles Beal, Lot 21, San Marcos Crossing, Apache Junction. I'd like to commend Rudy and his staff for the work they're doing on this. It's huge for the city. Yeah. It's a huge impact and a lot of effort by a lot of people. I think it's important that communication across the community as this is going on is very important in order to eliminate the obstacles that are going to present themselves. So what I'd like to recommend is you set up some type of public meetings for us prior to the city councils, so we have, prior knowledge of what's going on as it happens. So when we come into the council meeting, we can be articulate in what our needs are. And staffing, I know that it's going to take a lot more staff in the planning department in order to pull this off, in order it to be seamless and for it to be profitable for the people that are investing their money and for the opportunities that it presents to the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for public hearing? Well, since this is not a voting item, we'll just go and move on. Consideration of ordinance number 1499, a city-initiated rezoning of 2.37 acres located at 978 East Roosevelt Street. Rudy? Oh.
Yep.
What I got down here is Rudy.
Here, Kendra.
Oh, the bottom one.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Kendra Elner, and I'm a planning intern here at the City of Apache Junction. I'll be presenting the continuation of case PZ 719, the city-initiated rezoning of 978 East Roosevelt Street. Okay. So just a recap and a timeline of this case. So this is approximately a 2.37 acre parcel. that was donated to the city in 2016 by previous owners who lived in Germany because it lay abandoned and occupied by trespassers for several years. And on July 23rd, 2019, the city approved direction to staff to proceed with all necessary actions on the pending rezoning of this property. And the case was presented at the 2 previously scheduled city meetings in 2020, and both resulting in continuations. So staff returned to the B&Z meetings to display 2 new land split exhibits to review and discuss, and tonight I will be discussing the formal P&Z motion. So here's just a brief overview of the property again. Directly to the east, there's property zoned RM2, and then to the north, south, and west, predominantly RSGR, which is low-density residential, and RM2 is multifamily residential. And here's just an aerial of the site that is zoned RSGR, and then as I go further, I will explain the P&Z Commission recommended zoning of RSGR PD. So on December 8th, 2020, staff presented the 2 new lot exhibits, and the commission voted 5-1 for the approval of the rezoning case from RSGR to RSGR PD for the purpose of creating a 2-lot land split with 1 lot 1.25 acres on the west and another for 1.12 acres on the east under the conditions in the draft ordinance. So the initial proposal from staff was requesting to rezone the vacant parcel from RSGR to RS20 or RS20 PD. But it was presented, when it was presented at the advertised city meetings in 2020, but after further discussion and public comment reviews and understanding the topographical information and the future land use designations, staff encouraged further recommendation to RSGR PD. So at the December 8, 2020 commission meeting, we proposed the RSGR by plan development to help mitigate the topographical constraints and eventually processing a 2-parcel land split with the 1.25 acre to the west and the 1.12 acres to the east with reduced front setbacks. So the staff analysis and recommendation notes that the proposed rezoning will include a minor general plan amendment because the minimum lot size for RSGR zones are 1.25 acres normally. But the commission voted approval for this rezoning, and the staff support this motion subjected to the conditions found in the draft ordinance 1499. And here's just the future land use exhibit from the 2020 general plan to further show that there's a variety of land uses in the area, and it's going to be projected to be low density in the future and the surrounding area. And this is the topography map that further visualizes the wash constraints of the buildable area, and specifically to the west side, this topographical information further supports why staff has led to recommend rezoning RSGR PD. And this isn't the 2-parcel land split we proposed, but this is the topography map. And this is the conditions found in draft ordinance 1499, as you see in your staff report as well. And then this is the east and west land split that that the commission approved, and we showed to them on December 8th, 2020. And here to answer any questions and further discussion.
Mr. Chair,
we have,
I
yes,
have a question.
yes.
Initially, planning and zoning, or when the city staff went to planning and zoning, it was for the 3-lot split, correct?
Correct, yes.
Why, excuse me, each section being 0.79 acres, 3 lots, why did the staff initially believe that was the best split for the land?
I believe it was because they thought when we sold the lots that it would be more beneficial to sell it in 3 because it was such a huge plot of land. That was just the first initial thought process behind that. I mean, if Larry wants to further explain that, that's what I understand.
Mayor Wilson, Commissioner, or Councilmember Nesser. The other one was water. So we thought if we have to bring the water in from the west, from Royal Palm, and it would cross through FPEs, and that it would be more cost-effective to serve 3 lots, bringing water in. So we still haven't figured out water, because there isn't water that's looped through the area. Right now, water, I think, is one street to the south, which is Tamarisk, and then on the east, water comes in from the east, but only goes so far. So I think, and it's Arizona water, so we do have from Mike Loggins an estimate to put water in the neighborhood of about $33,000. So we either divide that by 2 and try to recoup it in the lot sales, or sell them as is. We think it's going to be easier to sell lots that have water, and then they're going to have to put in their own septic system. So the initial thought was 3 lots. That way it could break up the land equally, and then it could still work, but then there were site constraints. That lot further to the west with the wash, and there's some other, like on that site, it starts a couple of little ravine type things. So it's like you'd have to grade the lot, you end up with a buildable site, but that lot probably would be diminished in value anyway because they really didn't get full use of their land. And then to the north of the wash, there's an area there they could use. So the lot on the east side was most developable, probably command the highest amount of money, and then the middle lot had a few constraints, but not very much. And then we kind of, I don't know if we overanalyzed it, but there's lots of permutations that you could have here, whether it's RSGR-PD, RS-20 PD. Then we were thinking, well, you could have 0.8 acres or 0.79, but then you could allow horses because there's a lot in the area. The Plan Commission just kind of decided, let's have 1.25 acres. You can have horses. The lot 1.12, we're not going to allow horses because we don't want to go down that path of allowing horses on lots less than 1.25 acres. But it's a non-conforming size lot. So we want to have one lot that's fully conforming, but because of a dedication of right-of-way along Roosevelt, we're going to dedicate 25 feet along Roosevelt. So that's really why it's a PD, so that we can relax the setbacks a little bit for the lot frontage.
Will the,
That's a long answer to basically say we went from 3 lots to 2 lots. It seemed agreeable to all the neighbors, and we weren't setting any precedents, and it just will end up, if we bring water in, we're going to have to divide the cost by 2.
since this land was given to the city, we need to maximize our benefit. So will this proposal, will the 2 lots with the 1.25 and the
1.25?
Whatever it is that going to, because by splitting it in 3 and that western lot being mostly a wash that's not buildable, this way by putting it into 2, will it be better to sell it that way? Do you feel with the 2 lots than the 3?
I think again, we're not realtors or anything else, but I think it would be about the same revenue to the city whether it's 3 lots or 2 lots. Knowing that the 3rd lot, 0.79 acres is really a pretty good-sized lot. That's 33,000 square feet. That's a good-sized lot. But the lot to the west, we probably have to discount it anyway, and kind of figured that whether you sell 2 lots, 1.25 acres, one at 1.12, we're going to yield about the same amount of revenue, whether it's 3 lots or 2. The only really factor then is water. Bringing water in was, what I guess more important to the neighbors that showed up at the public meeting was have something that's compatible with the neighborhood.
Okay.
Even though, again, it's a mixed neighborhood. There's a mobile home park to the northwest. There's skies directly to the north. The land to the east is set up for 22 units an acre, very high density. So that's just a cast-off from the old zoning maps from the county. So, but everything to the south and west is more large lots.
So Larry, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So the lot to the left, the 1.25 acres, has got the majority is the wash. But that would be the lot you would allow horses. Are you trying to discourage horses based on the surrounding area? I mean, would it make more sense to bring that line over to the west a little bit, to have the 1.25 acres on the side that you have more usable land if you were to put up stables or some sort of A practice arena?
Well, and I'm not a horse person, but we do have one on the Plan Commission. I met with all 7 Plan Commissioners on the site. We walked the site. I walked the site 7 times in one day. They all, at least the horse folks, thought that that land on the north of the wash would be fine to put a little horse paddock or whatever up there. It would be fine.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Mayor, Larry, it's also my understanding that there was some concern about having horse property on that 1.12 acres. Is that correct? The current owners around that property wanted it on the what is now the what is proposed to be the 1.25.
right, that's another permutation. You could just flip these and have the horse property to the east, as Councilmember Schroeder just mentioned. There are 2 houses close by. This just seemed to be the most amenable to all the parties in the neighborhood, I guess.
And I don't know if this just hasn't been updated yet, but on this map with the 1.25 and the 1.12, it shows the rear setbacks as 20 feet, but the draft ordinance called on the 1.25 acres to be the 40-foot in the rear. Is this just going to be redrawn? And the side setbacks at 20 instead of at 10?
Yeah, so we didn't update this new,
The map,
with
yeah.
the setbacks, but we did update it in the ordinance. So it will be still normal setbacks except in the
For
front.
the 1.25 acres?
Yes,
Okay.
for all of them,
So it's going to be 25 feet in the front, and then everything else stays RSGR setback.
yes. So this
Wait,
isn't,
which-
So it's 25 in the front,
Yeah,
20 on each side, 40 in the rear.
For both parcels.
for both
Correct,
parcels.
correct.
Okay, that's what I was,
sorry.
thought this is going to be a problem.
Krista?
Was there any decision on the funds, where the funds will be allocated?
This is the rezoning matter, so where we really weren't addressing, we were just looking at land use and what's the correct zoning for this property. So we have not looked at where do the funds go. We have about $30,000 already, and even though it was free, it really wasn't free. It came with about $30,000 worth of cleanup over there.
Real mess.
So we need to recover those. That's why we're kind of going down this road. But as to where the proceeds go, I mean, we have to go through a public process that it's open and fair to anybody, probably have sealed bids, we'll have minimum, won't be as complicated as the 3,000 acres, but we will have to, I think, open it up to anybody and have sealed bids and a minimum qualifying bid, et cetera, and maybe a time frame. I don't think we want someone to come in there and flip it. I think we want some performance measures in there as to when they would develop it.
So
But as to where the proceeds go, that's really, right now, kind of not part of the zoning question, if you will.
The $30,000 to clean it up, that was through the CDC or what?
No, that just came out of city coffers, mostly out of our development services budget over about a 3-year period, I would
And
say.
so that'll be replenished?
That
Is
would be
that what
maybe
I'm
my
hearing?
recommendation to be the first initial investment. It would need to come to the city first, and then we'd have a policy discussion about that. This is the one, if you remember, Mr. Bowrider had come to council meetings over and over, and this was a really interesting code compliance case. But yeah, it took us years. But we would come back at that point to discuss that part of it.
Anyone else? Okay, I have a question in this aspect on it. Now, we have almost basically, in a sense, across the street to a little bit to the north, we've done a conditional use permit on a less than 1.25 acres for that person to have horses on it. Why couldn't we also do a conditional use permit for this 1.12 acres to allow to have horses on this property?
Well, you could, that's council discretion. We're recommending you don't do that. That
Why?
previous action was not a conditional use permit. That was a PD zoning, just like this. What happened was the previous property owner didn't want horses next door, so they took 8 feet off their property line and added it to their property. Then over time, I guess it got sold. The new buyer put up a horse shade, thought they could have horses because the realtor advertised that it had horses, but it was not a net 1.25. So then the council came back and said, okay, we're going to rezone you to RSGR PD. They had to go through a full rezoning process to allow a horses on less than 1.25. So I think the idea of the Plan Commission was yes, that's council discretion, sure you can do that, but I think in light of the discussion with the neighborhood and everything else, the 1.25 they didn't really want to start having, because again, where do you stop? Okay, do you have 0.99 acres you can have a horse? Is it 1.12 or is it 1.11? Just keep it at the regulations as they are, 1.25, that's our standard, that's what the Plan Commission felt, and we agree with that as staff.
Well, I know when we were talking about splitting them up into 3, we were talking about allowing horses on them as well.
Yes, we did have that conversation, and that proved probably not to be good advice either, so. Again, it's a horse community. I think this allows one property to have a horse, and the other, it's 1.12, and it doesn't create a precedent. The other one was really an exception because we were really doing the property owner a favor because the realtor was not disclosed. They had to go back to the title company, perhaps,
I remember that.
Yeah.
And to give you some information on that one as well, is what it was, when the person to the west had built his house, he built it too close to the property line and made an agreement with the then neighbor who had horses to purchase the 8-foot easement so that he wouldn't have to tear his house down to move the house over that was already constructed. And then when it was sold, it already had stalls on the property and everything. It was already set up and was advertised as a complete setup for horse property.
This here we would advertise one with and one without, I guess, if that's the council's discretion.
Your Honor.
I'd like to see a horse property.
Your Honor, yes. That's my concern too, is are we going to get in the predicament of, I move in on the piece that's, what is it, 1/8 of an acre, less than the 1 1/4, where they can't have horses or they don't want horses, but they do live right next door to horse property, and we get into the issue again of the complaining of, well, I don't want horse property, I don't want to smell it, we have a fly issue, and I can kind of understand where Mayor Wilson is coming from with that. It just seems like we get in a predicament one way or the other. And so with the split, it's just a weird split. I mean, how many properties? I've not seen a lot of properties that are 1.12 acres. Is that common? I've not seen that regularly. It's just a weird situation.
Well, it started out,
a weird number,
I think it started out because, well, the parcel itself is 2.37, but it was originally part of a 5-acre parcel.
Yeah.
So you had a 5-acre parcel, then that got split off. You see the small house just to the east, that got split off from the other parent parcel, if you want to call it that. So what we got was 2.37, so then how do you split it up? Because another option was just to divide them down the middle, then each property would have 1.19 and one would have 1.18. And then do you have horses on those? And no, they don't meet 1.25 acres.
Yeah.
So again, there were many permutations of how you could slice and dice. It doesn't look that difficult, but there's lots of different ways you can do it.
Honestly, my preference would have been to split it down the middle and just make neither one horse property then. So you're not in the predicament of somebody moving in next to horses, and here we come with complaining again.
Yep.
And that's still an option, sorry.
And with all of the different ways we've talked about, the 3 lots, the 2 equal lots versus this way, we could also just leave it as 2.37 and let the buyer decide.
You
how
could do
he
that. I
wants
think
to
that
split
does
it.
shortchange the city. I don't know that the city would get the same amount of money if you do a lot of the work. You do the rezoning, you have the setbacks, and now you've also done the land split. So what we were trying to do is, like a developer would do, have a lot that we could sell, because they'll just come in and ask for the rezoning and do the lot split. They would get the delta between the work that we did. So yes, that is an option, but we thought this was more fiscally, made more sense to the city.
And I do agree that you have to draw the line someplace, or why have zoning at all? So to keep it that one lot has the 1.25 and can have it. You know, if we go ahead and say, well, 1.12 can have horses here, everybody else is going to say, well, I have 1.0. And it does become a matter of where do you draw the line?
0.25.
I've been a horse person for 30-some years and a realtor. I understand both sides of it, but you do have to draw the line somewhere.
I think the issue part for the Plan Commission was the city itself setting a precedent to allow horses on less than an acre and a quarter, then
it opens the
it
gate.
opens the request, everybody's gonna do it, so. And again, that's a different discussion. If you wanna have horses on less than an acre and a quarter, have that discussion, but maybe not as part of this, because it's a bigger discussion.
Your Honor. So I know I've personally had several conversations with the owner directly, I believe it's to the east of the property, and he's very much not in favor of having horses on that 1.12 acres. And in regards to, you know, buying a property and then potentially having horses next to it, I mean, that's also buyer's due diligence. You have to know what's around your property to know that you might have horses there. I think that that's a part of a conversation that has been a larger conversation in and around the community. My question, though, is do we know roughly what we're looking at in terms of profit or revenue off of any of these splits, be it we leave it alone and let the new buyer decide, be it 2 split or 3 split?
No, not in any certain terms. I think what we found was that listed properties with horse privileges seem to be in the neighborhood of $125,000. So the one lot to the west would be 125. The one to the east would be less than that. So then you subtract out again. When we say we recoup our costs, I don't know if that money's that money's been spent. It's a sunk cost. So the other lot would be somewhat less than that. But we think, again, if we could bring in water, again, our net profit goes down, but we think it'll be easier to sell if there's water available. And I just think folks don't like drilling their own well or bringing in water every week. It just seems like that's the prudent thing to do, is to get water to the site. So on the 3 lot, again, I think we looked at it, all 3 could end up being in that same neighborhood of about $220,000 of the gross sale, if you will, and then you subtract out the cost. So on 2 and 2.37, I don't know what, we didn't really look at what that value might be if we sold it as is.
Thank you.
So when we went, from our last discussion, when we went from the 3 lots to this, can you tell us in the public what processes took place to get to where we have 2 lots rather than 3? What did the staff and what had to take place to get us to 2 lots?
It was a meeting just like this for about 45 minutes where the Plan Commission really went, and they, again, had each physically walked the site with me, so they kind of knew, you know, what was going on. And then they heard input from the public as well, and looked at the alternatives in terms, and then we actually had a little table set up in the staff report that showed, I think, 6 different alternatives. And then they decided, okay, we'll go with this one. So I think it was just a matter of them looking at it. What does the neighborhood look like? What does it feel like? What's practical for, can you have horses on the acre and a quarter with the wash there? And then what is the neighborhood input? And then this is their recommendation of the Plan Commission.
And so if council were to say, look, we just want to make just divide it equally, so then we don't have to deal with the horse issue, or we're talking about what? Going back to the planning and zoning, making a presentation?
No, you could make that change tonight. You can
Okay.
say we want each lot, and I can tell you one's 1.19 and one is 1.18. And you could say no horses on either. You could say horses on both. You could go with this proposed setbacks of 25, 20, 20, and 40 in the back.
Okay. Thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I would just say, as Krista talks about, you know, that split, number one, I think most of us here would like to see land where people can have horses, and that's what's so attractive about Apache Junction. So I think to have one that is an acre and a quarter and allow somebody the opportunity to have horses. And I actually drove by there, and that wash is horrible, horrible. So I think I get it in terms of why we want to make that lot bigger, because the usable land is so much less than on the acre and 0.12. The other thing is I think also we need to be very careful as a city if we have property that we have attained, and I don't think it is right for us to say, okay, we're going to sell these 2 lots, and we as a city have decided we're going to use that 1.12 to put horses on, when that's not the standard that we use for everybody else. So I would just say we might want to be cautious where that's concerned.
And I'll just add, this is the first time this has ever happened
Right.
in almost 20 years. We've never come across something like this, and this is why you're kind of struggling through it. It's gone through P&Z, tried to get the best application to something where we've owned property like this. The owner was, am I remembering right, the owner was from Switzerland?
Germany.
And
We had to get we had to get the documents translated. And I don't know if anybody here has ever seen a notarized document from Germany. It is fascinating. It's wrapped up in a bow, and it's a different color, and it's on sheepskin paper. It's amazing. Try to go and record that at the county recorder's office. Good luck. And so we had some problems doing that.
There actually were 2 owners. So the landowner was one family from Germany, and then the manufactured home was a different owner. So again, that's why the costs, we ended up taking that to the landfill. That cost us about $10,000 just there for the manufactured home. But we also had to get permission from the owner of the personal property, which was the manufactured home.
It's a tough.
No more? Okay.
Do we have a public hearing? Yeah.
This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on the item?
Yeah, hi, my name's Donna Carr, and I am an Apache Junction resident. Looking at that paper right there that's put up there, that side with the wash on it, that's ridiculous. It's a little hard to, I mean, if you got kids, okay, you're out in the yard playing, there goes your kid down the creek, right? But the fact of the matter is I understand horse property. And I listen to Larry, and he sounds like the owner of Goodwill. I'm sorry, we're not making enough money on this property. It was given to you for free. If you took the line that's in the dead center and you reversed it this way, there'd be more buildable property on both lands, because that looks like a road at the bottom as well as a road at the top. But if you flip the line the opposite direction, each property would have buildable land on it. But at the same time if you wanted to move the line over to the left a little bit and then take the one on the right, and Larry wants, 3 properties, split that one that way. Then you got 2 maybe that aren't horse properties that are smaller, and the bigger one with the wash that's barely buildable. I'm just looking at the green at the bottom of the one with the big wash. There's got to be water coming in there in order for there to be green on that property. So to flip it the other way, there's less green on both properties. Thanks.
Anyone else?
James Boerter, 1054 East Roosevelt. Council members, Mayor, I'm the guy that made this possible. I'm the guy that you should be talking to. There are horses in front of that property right now. The man only comes in the winter, but he brings his horses. So if you sell it, they'll know there's horses in the area. I don't mind that you're splitting it in 2. Good for you. You're going to make some money for the city. You're going to put it to good use, I hope. The only thing I ask, and I'm not only asking for myself, I'm asking for my neighbors that asked me to ask you, could you please fix Roosevelt a little bit better if you do this? it's kind of a bad road. It doesn't go through. As far as the wash goes on the bigger property, I've lived there for 20 years. I've only ever seen that wash run once.
Yeah.
I believe you could put horses on there pretty easy. So you make up your mind what you want to do. In a way, I'm kind of sorry I made this all up for you. But, you know, it's the way it goes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion on ordinance number 1499.
You don't have any discussion?
Well, do you want additional discussion? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't ask any questions, but I had a question of Gail.
Yeah.
Actually, because you've done horse and real estate. This issue of 1.25 and 1.12. There's also an option, what if you move that center line over further so that the lot on the east is only 1 acre? And because the lot on the west side has a lot of a wash and not buildable, you're giving that that piece of property, then making it a 1.37 acre. Do you think as a realtor that that would be any benefit, doing something like that?
No, not really. Simply because the lot on the left is going to have the horse privileges anyways.
Right.
And so the lot on the right with recording of a deed restriction, any buyer would see that on their title report. It wouldn't be a surprise.
No, I'm not talking about a surprise, but would it just help giving this lot on the west more buildable, usable property that's not in a wash, and defining it clearly that the lot on the east is just 1 acre?
Yeah, I don't really think it would make a difference
Okay.
for either the horse people or for the non-horse people. Because even though that, you can still put your horses and your corrals and any of that on the north side and the west side without an issue. The big issue is the building site is limited to that triangle up front, but that would still be a huge house.
Yeah.
You wouldn't need,
yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't need that much land. So, yes, there is a wash on it, but it wouldn't interfere with horse activities.
Okay, just curious.
So I got a question for you, Gil. So, I mean, the whole idea is to make property more appealing. So, I personally, I'm not a horse guy, but if I were, and I stood next to these two lots, and I planned to build an arena and some stables and have some horses, I would say the lot on the east would be more appealing to me to want to buy. Whether or not it's, you know, sure, you're able to run horses with the one with the giant wash in it, but if I'm looking at it, if my purpose behind buying an over acre of land for the purpose of having my horses, I would say the lot on the east would be more appealing to me to do that. So if the whole idea, either I liked Krista's idea, you know, it's just split the thing down the middle, and then that's it. Discussion over. No neighbors getting upset over one thing. The horses are out of the question. So, but if it comes down to the matter where a horse lot is in question, personally, I would think it would be more appealing for someone to buy property who has horses if there wasn't a giant wash running through the middle of it.
Well, it's always nicer to buy the nice flat acre and a quarter and just have anything available to put your horse on. But what's on the left would not prohibit you from doing it.
No, I'm not saying it wouldn't prohibit it, but I mean,
Yeah.
we're looking to sell a lot, right? We want the greatest appeal for what it has to offer. And if you've got two lots side by side and one of them is offering a horse, you would almost want to ensure the sale of that land, would it not be prudent to say the land that has the more usable space for, to be able to have a horse on, to be able to have the horse on? That's all I'm getting at, because it's like, these are acre lots. I mean, people are coming to buy acre lots for, especially out here in this town, a lot of them do look for that for the horse property. I mean, that's why they come out here. So I was just,
Well, that, they do, but there's also a lot of people that come out here that just don't want to be that close to their neighbors and want the acreage. Because realistically, the horse population is like 1% of the whole city's population.
And
We have
it's
a lot of
diminishing.
people east of 88 in the horse area that don't have horses, just because they like the big lots.
yeah, I agree with that. I mean, could that possibly be because we have managed to take any lots that you can actually do things with, that you could put horses on? And the lots we offer to have horses on, you're gonna have to start building bridges to get across from one end to the other without, breaking an ankle.
Well, as a person who owns 5 acres and a big portion of Weeks Wash, it never prevented me from doing anything with my horses.
Well, 5
So-
acres.
Yeah, but probably 2 to 3 of that is the wash. So that's what I'm saying. It's not really a deterrent.
Well, Mayor,
Yes.
my concern, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Robert. I guess my biggest concern with that 1.12 acres, if we were to flip these around, is what is to stop somebody from putting their horses up at the very front of that property, being 10, 15 feet away from that house right there? Then we're causing a problem by putting horse property right there where we can't tell the person where they need to put their horses. I mean, if we could guarantee that they were gonna put it more on the back side of that lot, then it's not right next to somebody's bedroom window.
True.
As opposed to that
But if they're
1.25
talking
acres, there's nothing around it.
If they're talking north of that wash, you're right on the property line of that other property as well. I mean, you're not sitting right up on the house. I see what you're saying. That could be something that could really definitely cause a problem. But if we're talking about the area north of the wash would be the usable area, where the south of the wash would be where the home would sit, you're still on the property line here of the neighbor north, I don't know, west.
I mean, the more I've heard in the discussion, I'm kind of more in favor as to, I think what Krista's saying is split it more down the middle and no horses on either property, and if I'm understanding correctly at least.
Your Honor, can we ask, Tessa and I were just curious, can you show us the access points? Where are they going to be accessing? Because to my knowledge, we can't, if there's going to be a front yard, horses can't be in the front yard, can they?
Yes, they can be in the front yard.
They can be in the front yard?
Sure.
Okay. So where would, on these properties, can you just indicate where
Well,
the?
this is Roosevelt. And so the access to the properties would be, again, whether they have a driveway here or right here, that's where they would come in.
So
More
the
likely, there's a little tiny wash that like starts right here and ends here. So this is a nice area. This is an old pad site, I guess. They could enter the property here. This one, you're kind of limited really in this area where you'd have your driveway. But we had a building site without altering the wash in this area, and that's why we had the 25-foot setback instead of 40. That we still had about 20,000 square feet that you could put a house in the front. And then this property here, you would have enough to build some sort of structure on the backside there.
So then there would be, as Councilmember Biggs just suggested, the property on the right, the 1.2, where are you? Okay.
Yep.
The 1.12, there is a propensity that somebody could have horses right next to the house then, correct?
Well, there is, like I said, this is like a landscaped, an old historic landscape cactus garden. Right here, it drops off pretty fast. But yes, they could, and there's nothing that would stop them really from grading here, but yes, they could have a horse shade structure there.
Okay, so if we were to flip it, have that the acre and a quarter, there could potentially, again, create an issue with, now this person doesn't have a choice, they don't have horses, want horses, can't have them, and we just created an issue. That's,
I did
Okay.
want to clarify for the public, this is the mobile home park driveway. So this is not a thoroughfare. This basically is a loop road. That is the access for the mobile home park. It essentially dead ends right there. All their runoff kind of comes down in this area. And again, the city doesn't have regulations on washes, but I fair say that there's not a lot of water that comes through here anymore, maybe like it used to, so.
And people do ride their horses in washes, I mean, the dry, you know,
Yeah.
so.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I've heard a lot here tonight, and we have cases like this in the past where I think maybe you want to go and walk the site and continue this perhaps to February 2nd.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
You second it?
I do.
Okay. All in favor? Oh, excuse me. Roll call.
We don't need you anymore, Jennifer.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Krista Rizzi, Vice Mayor, my apologies, and a second by Councilmember Biggs, correct?
Yes.
Okay. To continue this item to the February 2nd council meeting. Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Nesser,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Gremmel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rizzi, Councilmember Biggs,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes, Your Honor.
Okay, well, I tried. Okay, old business. We don't have any old business this time. I'm going to, because we did not have call to the public last meeting because of the swearing in, and we have some people that would like to, at call to the public, address some of the new business items. So I'd like to ask to move the call to the public up to now. And everyone's had already submitted, so at this time, for the call of the public to express requests, communication, comments, and suggestion, each speaker must have already filled out the request to speak form and handed it to the city clerk before the end of the city manager's report. All issues will be presented in a professional manner without personal attacks. Under the open meeting law, the council cannot engage in discussions on the issues presented, but may respond to criticism and may direct staff to follow up with the speaker directly and/or place this matter on future agenda for the council discussion. There is a 3-minute time limit for each speaker. Okay, the first one I have here is Jeff Bartlett. You actually have two, so just do one of them.
She's going to give him 3 minutes for each item. She said he could have 3
Oh,
minutes for
okay.
each item.
Yeah, so I mean, I did bring up two concerns. Should I just
Okay,
mix
so you
them
can
into
have 3
one
minutes
talk
for each
here?
one.
What was that?
You can have 3 minutes for each one.
All right. Or is it okay if I can just kind of go off and then just kind of mix it, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Jeff Bartlett. I'm over at 108 North Meridian Drive, apartment 220 in Apache Junction, Arizona. This first thing I'd like to say, that was actually a good decision there. I personally think call to the public should put before the meetings. But let me see here. One of the things I was wanting to bring up is when you get to section J, number 14, I personally strongly support our law enforcement. I mean, I used to be a correctional officer myself for a little bit, and I used to go work in a prison just carrying pepper spray and a radio. So, I mean, I know how difficult it is for our people who work in that field there. And I personally don't support militarizing our police. I don't think it's a good idea. It causes tension between people and law enforcement, and I don't think it's necessary for a town with only 40,000 people. I don't think it's a good idea for these larger cities either. I think it causes problems. And I think community policing is probably the best way to go when it comes to law enforcement, whether it's a big city or a small city. And it also builds more trust between police officers and citizens, and I think community policing is probably the best option for that. And the other thing I was wanting to bring up, and I guess it kind of relates to this a little bit, but not so much with the vehicle though, but just maybe I personally think criminal justice reform is needed at all levels of government, including the city level of government, and I feel that, I mean, I've read through the city code, I've read through state ordinances, and I personally think that city governments or any other government should kind of be more lenient with people and probably cut back on the excessive fines and criminal penalties. I think things get a little excessive sometimes, and that causes tension between citizens and law enforcement. And I personally think that the city should just go through the code and kind of go through each thing and look for ways to make things more lenient as they possibly can for people, but at the same time make sure the city's following the state and federal laws to make sure they're compliant, because you do have state and federal laws that go above certain things. And that's all I really got to say here, except that I think that Apache Junction should try not to be like these other cities that are doing this, and be more of Apache Junction and set the example for other cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Andrew Danielle.
I would like to thank you guys for letting me speak. In regard to the tactical vehicle.
Andrew, can we get your name and address?
Oh, of course. My name is Andrew Daniel in 950 West 19th Avenue. Lived in Apache Junction about 23 of my 25 years. But I'm somewhat concerned with the lack of information justification, especially for something with such a escalated use of force and a high-ticket item. I have made my concerns known to a few members of the council, and I'm kind of concerned with the limited information that I received back that they seem that they known as well. This is a high-ticket item, and I also have served as a correctional officer. I actually graduated same class as Grimmel. I believe it is your husband, Councilmember Grimmel. We do need law enforcement right now. We are living in a nearing the end of COVID, thankfully, and post-COVID city. There's going to be a large mental health, substance abuse issue. I do believe that there is a much greater use of these funds than something that gives this kind of impression to the community. I don't see this vehicle showing up to a normal sound disturbance or regular police activity. And I would also be interested to know how much Apache Junction Police Department does use the tactical vehicle. I am familiar that there is a use for it. I just shocked by the lack of justification that was made to the public. I would strongly recommend that the council looks at using these funds, or at least allocating a decent amount of funds, for the kind of community that we're going to have in the next coming years. There is the issue with unemployment. There is the issue with substance abuse. I have friends that were born into 9/11, and now they are here graduating, not even having graduation, and they are cut up. They don't have anything going on. They are scared, and I'm scared. I have 2 kids. I am scared for what's going to be happening here soon. And just reiterating, I'm kind of speaking in circles now, but there are some serious issues. I would love to see our men and women in uniform coming up and helping us with it. I just don't see this being the way. Right now, the right time, gives the right message, or anything like that. So I strongly recommend that you guys take a look at what our priorities should be within the next couple years. Maybe revisit this at another time. But thank you for your consideration. I hope you guys all have a good night.
Thank you. Rich Winters.
Hello, my name is Rich Winters, live at 1762 South Goldfield Road with my partner Gail Torchio, who's also here today. Well, we purchased this beautiful property and rehabbed it. We started in March of 2019. My hometown in Indiana, the gentleman there had it for 15 years. He was 85 years old, could no longer maintain it, and he was a widower, as is Gail. Excuse me. And we felt no need for a realtor to go through any kind of we had an escrow, and we put it in there, and we saved money on realty fees, and we dropped about everything we had in it to get it and then to rehab it and fix it up, make it a beautiful property that it is today. Unbeknownst to us, we get a criminal complaint because there's a little RV shed on it that's a tin. It's not really a building. It's what do you call it? Like aluminum on the side for shading an RV. And there's a cargo container. Now, the cargo container was bought by Mr. Hurst and put on the property 15 years ago. The RV shed was there for 25 years. We get a criminal complaint that we did this. We didn't do this. We purchased the property. Now, I understand that there's an easement and that you all have a right to build a road there. But a right to build it doesn't make it right. And I've talked to every neighbor there. Nobody wants it. Nobody needs it. Goldfield Road, it needs some construction too, but what it really needs is, I don't know what it needs, but it is not a raceway. But on Saturday night, it becomes a raceway, and it's dangerous as all get out. And the property, 18th Avenue, is the one that's in consideration here, and it dead ends where this RV shed would be. However, you've got the church over there, Lutheran church, and it goes, you'll look at the map, it goes into a V, and there's no need for any road there. Now or in the future, it would devastate the properties, mine and the neighbors. So it's just silly, really. It's just silly. We're asking for your consideration for an easement because not only do we not want to tear the building down, but nobody's going to build a road there. It's not even practical. I thank you for your time and consideration. Mr. Wilson, Mayor Wilson, congratulations, 50 years. That's very impressive.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your time. And I have given copies of everything to everyone, including a 3-ring binder. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to contact us. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. George Schroeder.
George Schroeder, 244 West Virginia, AJ. To address the 800-pound gorilla in the room, our government was attacked. This is way far and above the wrong thing. We should be having epiphanies about who our representatives are. Our current representative has, in the last 6 years, proven to be a domestic terrorist. In Oregon, in Nevada, in Germany, in England, he went and said things he shouldn't have said against the United States. Yet he got elected unopposed overwhelmingly, Mr. Paul Gosar. This is so wrong. He allegedly subscribed.
That's something that you're addressing to the city for what
He's
the
our
city can do.
representative. He's our representative.
Yes. but you
Therefore,
can
that
address
affects
to him.
us.
This is city. Address the city.
I'm addressing him and the city. The people that voted for him in this city
No.
are just as guilty as he is. He is a problem. He's a domestic terrorist. Thanks for wearing a mask and that $10 million you got over the last 4 years.
Thank you. I've had requests to have a 5-minute break, and we'll resume with new business.
Do you really want them back?
Whole nother conversation.
Putting on a show for us there, Gail?
Well, you know, towards the end of the evening. you just
Okay, I call
little-
city council meeting back to order. New business. Consideration of resolution number 21-03, declaring a public record and amending the City of Apache Junction classification plan for fiscal year 2020 and 2021 to create a principal engineer position. Larry?
Good evening again, Mayor, council members. So as part of aligning our work effort with this almost 3,000 acres of development, we've already taken some internal mechanisms to create a principal planner position. That Sidney Urias is here, so Rudy is the planning manager. He would supervise this position. In order to be competitive in the region, we're suggesting that the grade, and with Liz, HR said this, our salary grouping, I guess, our group would be 32. So under the current city personnel rules, any position over a 30 has to have city council approval. Oftentimes that happens during the budget process where you approve the budget. In the budget, you might approve a position that's a 31 or 32 or whatever. So since we're outside the budget process, it does take specific council action to allow us to basically sets the grouping for the position. Then we would go out and do recruitment. And we think we want to bring somebody on before July to get ready for this development and start working on it. So we want to be able to go out and recruit and see how that recruitment goes.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Larry, for this position, just for the public and, you know, for many of us here, could you explain what the duties or what exactly this person would do?
Certainly. So right now we have the city engineer, Emil. He does development review for what we call off-site. So when Fry's went in, the city engineer would look at Old West Highway, would look at Idaho along with ADOT. We have what we would call an on-site engineer. They look at the Fry's property itself and look at all the development and the engineering, water, sewer, curb, gutter, stormwater. So for the state land, we're thinking of combining those duties, if you will. So on the state land, a development would come in. We wouldn't get plans in and then send them in two different directions. They would come in and we'd have one person in development services, or depending on how fast they come in, there may be third-party consultants that do the subdivision review. So essentially, when a typical subdivision would come in, we look at the on-site, off-site impacts, we look at the planning, zoning, you know, the lot layout, all that. For the engineering, it's really looking at how everything is intertwined. So all these plan sets that come in for engineering, including grading and drainage and stormwater and water and sewer, the curb elevations, all that gets designed by an engineer and reviewed by an engineer. So that's what we're talking about here, is someone to help coordinate that engineering review process. Primarily for the state land. If other projects come along, we certainly will keep them busy. But we think, in talking to the developers, I think we said this at previous meetings, you know, we're talking about, you know, 1,400 to 1,500 lots a year. And I was sending some data to Bryant the other day. So last year we had 131 permits for the year. That's how many we're going to do a month. So about 18 to 20 months from now will be the gentleman that was here, Patrick, with D.R. Horton. That's the pace they're on, to open up a development with 1,000 lots, and then Brookfield with 500. We need to have someone helping us coordinate and keeping everything moving along. So that's what this position is going to be. And again, I think I said this, maybe the other council members were in the audience, but they weren't council members yet. Had a couple of series of presentations to talk about more building inspectors as time goes on. We'll need engineering inspectors to make sure what's in the field, you know, is done correctly. Plan reviewers, all that comes up to that. And I guess to address the other issue, again, the city, we have to be able to, you know, we have the responsibility to make sure the development north of baseline also happens, make sure we do that correctly. So I don't want people to think, oh, we're just going to focus on this 4 square miles And the rest of the 12 square miles of the city don't matter to us. Certainly it matters. We want to have a downtown. We want to have viable neighborhoods. We know this is coming, and so we want to be ready for it. But we certainly want to, make sure we take care of the folks that are already here as well.
Thank you. What will the recruitment look like? Will we go out of state, in state?
We advertise these nationally, so and the way the job boards work now, they get picked up, so we may advertise on our website, but all the other, Indeed, everything picks it up. So government jobs, all those things get picked up. Arizona League of Cities and Towns, we advertise there. So there's already search engines that go see it and then repost our stuff. So we'll hire the best person that we can.
Okay, anyone else have a discussion? Questions? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion?
Your Honor.
Yes.
I move that resolution number 21-03, a resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of Apache Junction, Arizona, declaring as a public record and amending a certain document filed with the city clerk entitled City of Apache Junction Classification Plan for fiscal year 2020-2021 to create a principal engineer position be approved.
Second.
Roll call, almost said.
Councilmember Biggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rizzi?
Yes.
Councilmember Nesser?
Yes.
Councilmember Gremmel?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Motion passes, Your Honor, unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, considerations for approval of the purchase of an armored vehicle for the police department's special weapons and tactics unit in the amount of $298,075. Chief Kelly.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, staff. If I can get somebody to get me out of this. You got me? All right. So this evening, what I'm here to just discuss with you, earlier this evening, I placed your current 1993 armored vehicle that the officers have been using since about 2006. It's got 180,000 miles plus on it. It is not armored. I'll go through a list. But this is one of those things that I want to talk, we had a discussion about it, and we're leading into the Arizona CARES Act. Each year since I've been here, we've been looking to try to advance the SWAT units' capabilities and professionalism and raise it to where they're protected when they go out on calls. The vehicle that is up there right now is maybe can handle any gunfire that comes through it. The officers consistently face other armaments, whether long guns or otherwise. But this is one of those things, the CARES Act money came into effect. We had been planning on asking for the budget. And each year in the past, we've asked for this to be placed into our budget to consider replacing this vehicle. The SWAT team became effective, I believe, in the late 80s. At that time, they got a vehicle that was being surplus from the Goodyear Police Department. That lasted till they received this vehicle from Mesa in 2006 or 7, and thereabouts. And that was a surplus vehicle as well. We paid $1 for it. We've been using that. The officers have used that to make it as safe as they can when they respond to calls. I think the important thing, and I heard a lot of people, or a couple of people talk about, militarization of the police department and everything else. That's not the intent of this. In fact, this is the opposite side. We're not trying to look like we're trying to be the military and whatnot. We're looking to get out and protect our public that we serve. This vehicle is sent out for those high-risk events where either shots are fired, a person's barricaded, we have a hostage situation, we have a barricaded subject in the house, and it's a high-risk situation these officers go into. The vehicle that you currently see there, they've been using it, the risk factor's been there, it's continued to be there, and it's gotten to the point where it's not user-friendly any longer. And I had placed it outside there this evening. The original plan was to have not only this vehicle, but a Bearcat that we are proposing that we would purchase. But because of the inauguration that's going on tomorrow, And through the week, all those vehicles have been basically put on hold for any possibilities in the metropolitan area. But this is the couple slides that I put up here are just showing the current vehicle you have. The current vehicle, they tried to play with it and make it as safe as they could. It's 28 years old. It may stop handgun rounds. It's not fully armored. It cannot go off the pavement. The way they weight and stuff inside with some of the plates they put in there to protect themselves from any gunfire that may be going in or in their direction has lowered the carriage on the van to a point where it can barely go into off normal roadways. So if it were to go into sand, it's going to sink and it would be stuck. So it's basically a vehicle that has to be on a regular stationary roadway. The small cargo area was basically put together by the officers and made to use it to carry the equipment. The current van that we showed you out there can hold maybe 4 to 5 operators inside the van, and the rest have to ride on the outside, which is not uncommon when they get close to a target area. It also has no roof hatch should they be able to use it for any emergency rescue type things, such as a monsoon time. I think early on, this came up when some of the other agencies were getting military equipment that was being surplus and given back. We had gotten a vehicle from the Department of Military Affairs where we were able to use a vehicle for that type of rescue. That vehicle was assigned, but it's on loan. This vehicle would replace the current 1993 vehicle. It also has no air conditioning. We know summers might get a little warm here. So for the officers to be contained in that vehicle when it's 110, 115 degrees out there, you could just imagine what the temperature gets inside, especially if they have to stay stationary. It's basically an outdated vehicle, and it's basically getting to the point where it's not serviceable. The vehicle we're proposing that you consider and approve, oops, wrong one, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Chief.
Yep. Right there. It's called Lenco Bearcat. It's one that's being used in across the country. It's basically a 2021 equipment for today's law enforcement for law enforcement needs. It's made so that armory or the ballistics that would be fired upon that vehicle, including the windows, will stop rifle fire. This suspension allows the Bearcat to go off-road and uneven surfaces, even the desert. So as we talk, even during the monsoon season, not that we had one this year, it would be able to be utilized to go and help in those situations. It'd be something we'd use on a case-by-case basis, because I also wouldn't want to put that in a situation where it was in a wash that would be so heavily watered down that we'd have to worry about it also being carried away. The vehicle can operate as a temporary ambulance if needed to extract people or citizens from a school. And somebody said we don't have to, and one of the people got up and said, you know, it's Apache Junction, it's 40,000 people, what do we need to have this type of vehicle for? Well, I just ask you to remember Sandy Hook. There's a community of about 14,000 people and several children were killed. They didn't expect it to happen either. We have to plan, this is an operational piece of equipment. We have to plan for worst scenario, and when the worst scenario happens, I don't want to report back to you all that we didn't have the equipment to support it. It's an officer safety issue, it's a citizen safety issue, it's a victim service situation. Like I said, it's used, it's not sent out for anything unless it's a potentially violent situation. It's not responding to house calls or traffic stops or anything like that. It is not used in that type of situation. It's a high-risk situation. You have a 12-man SWAT unit that's been operational, as I said, from the mid to late 80s. They're professionally trained. They respond very well. They worked hand in hand with Mesa, Gilbert, Chandler on a regular basis. They trained with them. And as far as, you know, their capabilities, they would be matched up with anybody in the valley. And as you can see, it has a roof hatch on it, so if we did have to go in a situation where we needed to get a citizen out, you don't have just the doorway in the back to let the people out, but we could bring them in through the top and bring them out if it was a water situation where we have an abandoned truck and they can't get out there. That's what, one of the ones that Lenco puts together. It kind of speaks for itself. There is if you wanted to look at it, I can make available to you a video that they put together, and they actually talk to a variety of different agencies across the country that have purchased this. But this is kind of the standard type of equipment that the law enforcement agencies are using across the country. Each one of the communities that we marry up next to have one of these, and some have 2 or 3 of them. As I said, we're using that 1993 piece of equipment that, aside from the fact that it looks embarrassing and we try to make ourselves look a little more professional, this is about as professional as you can get. The one we're ordering is not going to have all the bells and whistles that they come with, and it also would be purchased on a contract, which is a consortium through the Houston, sorry. It's a cooperative through the Houston Galveston area council contract, which is a nationwide contract for law enforcement. That looks a little different than the one you had parked out in front of you, if anybody took a look in the back of the thing yesterday. It's got seats it'll handle up to near our whole team can be actually transported and deployed at one time versus trying to have multiple vehicles and stuff going back and forth. Air conditioned, as you can see, it can be mobilized to be utilized as an ambulance to move people out of an area quickly too, should one not be available.
Chief, how long will it take for that vehicle if we order? And
if we ordered it today, it would take at least 10 months to get here. Yeah, it's not one of those shorter things. It's going to take at least 10 months. And I know across the country that's a lot of things you see, but these are the vehicles that are being used to protect the officers that you and we or I put in jeopardy. And I don't want to have a situation, nor would you want to have something because we send somebody out with equipment that's not as protective for either the citizen or our officers, that we come back and have a negative thing to report to you. As I said, this is an operational piece of equipment. We've been trying to do it for several years. And each time we've gone through, we haven't had the money. With the CARES Act money that was destined for law enforcement use, this is one of the things we've been asking for, and the time came, and that's what the monies would be used with. It's not going to come out of any city dollars or taxpayers' dollars. This is CARES Act money. And any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them.
Sure. I think we got a bunch.
Your Honor.
Braden, you want to start?
Sure. So just to reiterate, and I know I'd like to just remind the public of numbers specifically. So we received $4.8 million of CARES Act funding because of our police department. And then initially we had set aside money to go to nonprofits and businesses. And then the remaining allocation on the prior council had voted to go to the police department. So that is where this funding is coming from, correct? Not in the additional funding that we have set aside?
That's correct.
Okay. How often does the current vehicle get used on a monthly or yearly basis?
Anywhere from 12 to 18 times a year.
So it's not sitting on a parking lot gathering dust?
That's not.
Thank you.
Gail?
First of all, I had the SWAT team walk my property one time because I had a dog that was viciously attacked, and I truly appreciated that team of men. Kind of freaked me out when I saw them at the back of my property. Of what the heck is happening here? But to have them is important because it is for the unknown. My question is, I mean, this vehicle, if the vehicle we have right now is from a 93, what do you think the anticipated length of time that this vehicle would be in service? 20?
The one we're proposing to get?
Yeah.
It should last easily 15 to 20 years.
On a once a month kind of usage
And as we grow, I mean, I hate to say it, but as things get bigger, problems get bigger too. So, I mean, I would expect there would probably be more call-outs for that for a variety of different reasons. But again, it's not just called out for routine things. I mean, it is.
Right.
It's run up a chain of command when sergeant gets to a scene and he sees a person barricaded in a house and he got a family on the outside that are, you know, being threatened, or a family inside is being threatened, or shots are being fired, which
Right.
we've had in this community, I want to make sure that the officers that we send into harm's way get the best protection. This will cover near every possible safety issue we would have on those types of calls.
Well, and with the availability of high-powered weapons and ammunition, handguns aren't the only thing you ever come across, correct?
No.
Yeah, I mean,
Generally, we're getting more of the, you know, AR-15 type armaments and the long guns, and they're not the shotguns that you go hunting with, yeah.
right, right. So you feel good about buying this?
I feel very confident that this gives us our best
A level
offer
of protection?
for the officers, and it stays within that contract that we're getting at a good price compared to what the market would yield, and especially in the market in today's world.
Okay.
Robert?
I got a couple questions, Chief. So, just to piggyback off what Brandon said, this is leftover monies from when we were doing the, you know, for the businesses, right? This is from the CARE Act money. Now, I just would like to make sure, I mean, I'm all for it. I want to see you guys have the best protection you can get. You're out there doing a job that I wouldn't want to do in a million years. Now, going over the CARES Act guidance for the state, by purchasing this vehicle, is it violating the conditions of what we're allowed to spend this money on? I guess this might be more of a question for Joel.
This is one actually for Matt. Maybe Joel can help out, but to explain a little bit about how the state, we received an allocation in what manner?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Schroeder. So we've fulfilled the obligations of the CARES Act money. The way we gained access to the Arizona CARES Act money was this was a reimbursement for our salaries for our police officers and our telecommunications officers. So in that way, that's the only way we got the money, was to show them the evidence that we had spent that $4.8 million on the salaries of our police personnel. That fulfills the obligations of the CARES Act at the federal level through the state requirements. So this, the reason the state did it that way was to provide the local communities in Arizona the flexibility to do what their localities needed the most. That's why we could use, as the council adopted, a portion of it for the business program, right, that we had, and also allows you to do things like this as well. So this does in no way violate the conditions or the requirements of the federal CARES Act.
Okay, well, I mean, I've gone through this thing 4 times, and nowhere have I found that, hey, if it shows that you've done some of the things that we say you need to do with it, you could take the leftover and spend it how you wish. I haven't seen that in any of this.
I'm just to clarify, in the Arizona CARES Act governor's guidance or the federal CARES Act?
The governance for state, territorial, local, and governments, yeah.
Okay. I can get you additional information that we provided from the earlier presentations we gave on it to clarify your questions.
Okay, and then one more question. So 10 months to get the vehicle?
Correct.
Is this a COD situation, or is you got to pay up front and then 10 months later hope you got what you pay for kind of thing? Or are we half down now, half down on delivery?
Once we get the concurrence of the city council, we can go forward and purchase it as we would buy any other vehicle in our fleet. We go through probably most likely Heather Hodgman or the Public Works, which is our fleet management, and they would place the order through the consortium with the Houston Galveston Council.
So is this like a normal for if you buy vehicles to your fleet to have to wait 10 months for them?
I tasked and requested numerous, whether it's State of Arizona contract or the Houston Galveston Council through Heather Hodgman, who does a lot of the procurement. She's much more attuned to the grants in regards to procurement process and those things that are more interagency. We try to piggyback with Mesa on some purchases, so if you order more things together, you get a cheaper price. But this is one of the things that she was tasked with, and she found this group that we would be able to purchase the equipment through. And it was by far the cheapest that we've been, it even beats the Arizona
And
state
chief,
contract.
is it the fastest too? I mean, the fastest, the quickest to get the procurement done?
Yeah, I
that
mean,
you-
they're guesstimating, depending on what the orders come in, how this goes, but I mean, they're averaging.
So this isn't a used vehicle, you're getting,
Oh, no, this
you're
is
getting
brand-
one,
this
you're getting one built.
This is brand new, yeah.
Right, so I guess, what I'm wondering is that, so 10 months later, we get the vehicle, but 10 months prior, we give them $250,000, basically. Okay.
Krista?
I got a ton of questions. I don't know if you want me to go last or, okay. Man, this is tough. I think there's nobody up here on this council that doesn't support law enforcement. I would say that
Absolutely,
for
you're 100% correct.
99.9% of our community. You could look at it and say the timing is really not good, or that the timing is probably the right timing.
If I called you at 2:30 in the morning and let you know that we're out on a scene and we have an officer down, is that the good timing?
Yeah. It's never
We
a
have to
good
plan- I
time.
mean,
never a
we're
good
trying to
time.
plan for
Yeah,
the
they're-
worst scenario
Yeah.
that we're dealing with, and that's the issue. When we try to train, we try to figure out the worst thing that could possibly happen. I would love to say we're investing $300,000 in something we'll never use.
Yeah.
But I can guarantee, I can't tell you that. But it's this thing that, we look at in the patrol cars, at a ballistic vest and the helmets.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look around the things that this city needs in regards for protection for your law enforcement people, there's a lot of costs out there that this CARES Act money would be really helpful for, and this is one of them. And we're working with the city manager and city attorney, and you all have been, like you said, you guys, as far as the city council, have been more than supportive of law enforcement. Our community is supportive of us.
Yeah.
And that's why we need to continue the community support.
When they go into the situations, you said that the situations that this type of vehicle is needed for occurs 12 to 18 times a year, so about just average once a month. So when they go in and they're in the vehicle, do they ever come out of the vehicle, or I guess I'm wondering and I don't think the general public knows this, how do the officers de-escalate and deal with the situation at the point that they have to show up in one of these?
Well, one of the first things they try to do on the SWAT side is that we have negotiators as well. So the vehicle and the officers get called out. They deploy, they get ready to go in. They may be deployed out to an address because of whatever the situation is. The negotiator is trying to talk to the person, put the gun down, let your family go, whatever the situation, and they'll do that. They could do that for 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
That vehicle come out. We've had them where we've had Mesa back us up and vice versa, where we've gone back and forth and given relief on the SWAT teams because it's so hot. They have to cool down, and we've used fire to cool us down to get them cool out and give them a break. So they'll do that. Once the decision is made to make an entry, then the officers will come out of the vehicle and they'll deploy in a safe manner where they go into a formation to go and make the move on the house. But the vehicle is just one of the things. A vehicle can be positioned in a variety of different situations. If you look at and it's not a really good picture, so it kind of doesn't show it, but there's different portholes in there. So they can position the vehicle in certain ways that they can get a better view of what their target is. And of course, we try to do it with the least amount. We don't go in a house where a person's threatening to shoot themselves. We don't do it because the chances of sending the officer and get them hurt or forcing the hand of having a person that's got a mental health situation to kill themselves is not a situation anybody wants to deal with.
Yeah.
So there's a different answer for each one of your questions, and like I said, I'd be more than happy to try to go through them with you.
I have several more questions, but before I ask, I'm just gonna tell you, my father was a retired New York State Trooper. I have nothing but the utmost respect for law enforcement from the time I was a young kid. I'm asking this because we have people in the community that we also have to answer to. And so I don't want anybody to be offended by these questions.
Not at all.
I'm gonna ask them, and it doesn't mean that I'm I'm leaning either way or the other. Did the whole department get to any input on what those funds would get used for? Or was that basically like the leadership in the department? Did everybody in the police department get to have some kind of a voice or an input on what the funds were used for?
Well, I think through working with the city manager's office, we tried to figure out what our needs were.
Yeah.
Like, when you say upper management, are you talking about, I'm asking a question back because this is a tool, upper management's not gonna be using this tool.
Right.
This is a tool that operationally that your line people are going. These are officers that are doing this SWAT thing it's not their full-time job, it's a collateral duty they do along with their other duties. But this is something we've been as a department looking for several years.
Right.
And each year that we've gone through this, and we have gone through a series of reaching out, and I'll credit my city manager here. The last one was we got this 1993 was because of his contact with the Mesa city manager, if I remember correctly, that they were surplusing their vehicle and want to know if we could utilize it. That time we got rid of the old coin truck that we had.
Yeah.
It was like a bread truck that that Public Works and the guys tried working so we could respond to these things in a situation. And we were able to use that vehicle safely for a while. So it hasn't been something like, oh, goody, we got money, we're trying to spend it. We're trying to figure out those big dollar items that we have. And if you look at what law enforcement's costing these days, I mean, every time you turn around, it's another $10,000 for this and $10,000 for this.
Yeah.
Well, one of the issues that I'm starting to get worried about with the vehicle we have is the current condition lends us to either this kind of decision point of do we continue to maintain
Right.
and then expend taxpayer dollars on that existing asset or liability, and that is the case, and it could break down, or we spend 10 grand or 20 grand over 15 years to keep it going. Is it not better maybe to not have, so at some point, we've listed out, to answer specifically, Vice Mayor, we've listed out and asked the police department to start describing radios, dispatch center,
And that
bullet
was
boost
kind of
Jeff,
my
lots of other
question,
things. Yeah, so
was-
there's
So
lots
the
of,
department as a whole they've been talking about this.
Yeah.
Hey, we need radios, we need, this, we need this. It's not just, because
and we work
sometimes
with-
the perception is that
Yeah.
it's a Christmas item, a wish list or something, and it's like, and so I'm asking
Right.
these so that the community can hear this.
Sure.
Because the community has got a lot to think and say about it. So
Sure.
it's not to pick at anybody or offend, and by any means to,
No, and I understand.
I think you get where I'm going with this.
Absolutely, and I think you all know me, that as far as when I come in and even talk to you about grants, we're reaching out for other things that,
Yeah.
because of limitations that we have in order to do the service that, I don't want to say that you demand, but we try to give our citizens the best services we possibly can.
Right.
And by that, we need to have the equipment and the availability to do these types of things. So we look for grants, whether it's through the
Yep.
governor's highway safety when we do DUI. Many years ago, you bought through a grant a DUI van. That was over $1 million in the 90s. I mean, these things are not cheap.
Yeah, for sure. And so out of that 4.8 million, is this what's left out of it, or are there?
no, there's significant dollars still available. So 1.2 was the original resolution
Yep.
that you all set aside for the businesses. Of that amount, 600,000 was expended, and it's gone. This 600,000 is available for this. We still have that original 4.8 that's now 3.2 that's available. And this is what Matt and I are trying to explain, is it is available for this, is a qualifying expenditure for this, but it can be for lots of other things too. But this is one that was a very high-ranking one that the police department, through my working with the Police Officers Association, was right there with the dispatch center that was being barely held together, along with radios, along with all those other
Yep.
things. Yeah.
And so it's just, it's a piece of it, and there's still other
Correct.
funds left
Yes.
that we'll be looking at in the future for other needs.
I sure hope so.
Yeah,
Correct,
I
yeah.
just,
Yeah.
and again, some of us have been through that, but some of us haven't. And
Right,
for the community, we want them to understand. Do we have the type of arms that we need to fight people, or to defend against people that may have, Councilwoman Gail had mentioned that these people are using AR-15s or something.
To counteract,
Can we counteract that?
yes.
Okay.
We're doing that each year. We try to advance it where we have an antiquated armament. We try to upgrade that to the most current.
Okay.
So we try to do that, and we go through it as like on a schedule. We know if something's 10 years old, it might be time to start thinking about recycling that.
Okay. We have, they have helmets that they need. They have armor, or cameras. Do all of our guys going out
We
there
just
have
got
these?
done upgrading those, and those that actually, when we talk about schedules, that was one of the things that came across. So just the supply for the ballistic body armor that they have, and not going to any of their gear and their helmet, that was almost $45,000.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And then in the future, this is I don't know if you can answer this now, but something to think about in the future is if we currently have, or if we have the ability to use these funds for, I'm not sure how I want to word it, maybe community programs that might benefit community members from creating situations that would need something like this. Do we have the ability to use that for any type of programs or for youth programs at all, or is it strictly our law enforcement?
I think the availability is there to work on public safety and other, actually, we used it, I mean, Matt, we used it for the business purposes, so I think we've got clarification, so yes.
Okay.
And we're kind of sort of doing that on the community outreach program where we try to reach out to a variety of the communities as well. But those are always things we try to enhance, but then when things get tight and budgets get tight, you know, certain things have to be cut back.
Yeah. When was the last time the old one was used? The current one, not the old, whatever.
The Rambler? Yeah. It was like used in the last couple, 2-3 weeks.
Okay. See, that's, we have situations as
well. We use them a lot. I mean, the thing is that they're brought out, and it's not only on those call-outs, but we have certain situations where we go into a identified house that's maybe narcotics are being sold out of it, and depending upon the level of that offender and the threat factor, there's a threat matrix that goes through. And I always put the threat matrix, you know, our arms in there. Are there barricades? Are there you know, all sorts of other things that are in there? We are in Arizona. I mean, I always look at the point that most people in Arizona have at least one firearm. So if you're going to a house where people are selling sizable amounts of narcotics, you can probably guarantee they want to protect that. And there's one way to protect that. Either booby traps going in or standing by the door and make sure nobody comes in.
Yeah.
So, and it's just one of the things that we face, or they face.
Okay. I appreciate it, and I'm not, please, I hope nobody in the department thinks I'm trying to beat you guys up.
No, if anybody gets beat up, it'll be me tomorrow. Don't worry about it.
We love you guys. We appreciate you guys.
Tess?
Well, I don't have any questions, but what I did do was I went up and sat down and talked with the SWAT team. And I got a lot of input from them. So I don't have anything for you right now, but after the public speaks, when we have our discussion session, I've got a lot of information here I want to share with the rest of the council members that I was told by the SWAT team themselves.
And I did return your call.
This isn't a public hearing.
It's a new business item. There won't be a public discussion, and there won't be a
This is
input
new
from the public.
business.
Oh, this is
Yeah, so we
not-
cut out,
Well, you want me to just discuss it now?
it's up to the mayor. I mean,
Mr. Mayor, you want me to, okay. I'll tell you what I was told. Because as Braden had said, Braden and I have seen a lot of people on Facebook asking all kinds of questions and making all kinds of statements and things. So this is what I was told by the SWAT team with discussion. Number one, this is not military surplus. A lot of people think, oh, well, it doesn't cost that much because you get it for $1 a year, you know, or whatever for military surplus. This is not even made by the military. It's a company out of Maine.
Correct, Glencoe.
It's a brand new vehicle. What SWAT said was it's a high risk, for high-risk situations, protection. Now, we've already discussed that about the police. Situations such as when they go for serving search warrants, barricades, active shooters, hostage rescue. But that's not the only use for this vehicle, just for the safety of the police officers. A lot of times this can be used here in Arizona if we do have a lot of rain in swift water rescues. There's a hatch on the top that the vehicle that's outside can't go into water. But this vehicle can, because it has, the traction of it is very good so that it's not going to be washed down the stream because of the weight of the vehicle. So it can be used for more than just police situations. It can be used to help the community. We talked about the maintenance of the vehicle. The one that's outside requires tires that are, you can't even find them, I guess, to buy them, and they cost a fortune or something like that. Where this vehicle, you can go down to Discount Tire or anybody else and buy tires for it. It's got a Ford engine in it, so it's nothing like it's something exotic where you have to have people with special knowledge. The city's maintenance people can do the work on it.
They do have special knowledge on fixing.
Well, but
that was one of the other points we did look at, that it is a Ford engine in there, and our garage does work on Fords.
Right. The other thing is, you talking about this in high-risk situations, the officers mentioned that a lot of times they might have a big, intense situation, but just calling in that vehicle often will diffuse the situation, and the people go, well, I'm not going to win this situation, and they give up just seeing this vehicle, you know, when it shows up. Let's see. The last thing I have on here is, I guess the ballistic rating is pretty good on this thing. It'll stop up to a 50 caliber with, in the same location, up to 10 hits. So I guess it's...
eliminated that from the point because I didn't want to know how good it is.
Well, it's a very safe vehicle. So anyway, talking with the SWAT officers themselves, the people who would be using this on a daily basis, they just, you're not going to get them to tell you it's not a good thing for the community, for them, for their safety, and for the community's use also. So that's what I've got to say.
Well, all of us are talking about the same thing, which is we want to be fiscally responsible. Correct. Make sure we're spending our money the right way. But this is one way I kind of look at it. These are funds that are available to us that, from what Matt said and Bryant had indicated, these funds are available to us kind of in a way because they looked at the amount of money that the city of Apache Junction has spent on our police department, right? And then...
Yes, and based on our population, each city in Arizona got a proportionate share of those CARES Act. Yeah.
Right. So, so the way I look at it is these funds are available to us. They do not come out of our general fund. This is $298,075. It's a lot of money. A lot of money that obviously we want to try not to take out of our general fund, and we probably don't have the ability right now to take it out of our general fund. So I see it as a way of meeting this need, not only for our police officers, but for victims and us as a community as a whole. I think it's important, as Tess said, sometimes just the presence alone is enough to de-escalate the situation. The other thing is, look at the society we live in today. And unfortunately, it's not getting better. And as much as Apache Junction is a fairly calm, and there's a lot of respect for police officers, it only takes one to blow that into something else. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
I would like to add, the thing that, this is not just because we're looking to buy this type of vehicle, to take away from how safe this community is. As the councilwoman stated, am I allowed to say woman anymore? I'm not sure.
Council member.
Member stated, the community's safe, but all it takes is one incident. And how many times have we unfortunately had to turn on the news and seen whatever happens in a town that's half of our size, a mass shooting or a shopping mall where they have something else. The other benefit is with this, we're able to support our other cities members that have always come to our call when we've called for them. So if Mason needs assistance, we can now support them. Gilbert and Chandler have always been ready available to assist us. So it helps us kind of reinforce or enhance the ability for us to service our metropolitan East Valley area. Not that we would have to do that on a regular basis, because most of those agencies are pretty much self-sufficient, and I rely more on them than they rely on me. But this is mainly a safety issue for the officers, but also the citizens, as we said several times. If I can picture the vehicle coming in there in a situation where you want to pull it in there and get your mom and the kids out of a house, where they can get in that vehicle and we can get them out of there before something else happens. If they're in a situation where they're barricaded and can't get out, we can move that vehicle in and not have to worry about any major issues. So, but anyway.
Okay. I thank everyone for their comments. I'm going to call for a motion now. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I gotta find it. My computers won't stay on here. I move that the purchase of a Lenco Bearcat armored vehicle for the SWAT unit in the amount of $298,075 be approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Oh, stay on.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes, as long as I can go in the off-road test drive with it. Okay.
In the front or in the back?
In the front. In the front. Are you kidding?
Senior
No, she
drive,
wants
so as
it
long as you're
back.
not driving.
Yeah, are you gonna have ride-alongs?
I was going to ask that. If we could get
You gonna have
ride-along.
ride-alongs?
Councilmember Biggs?
I am going to vote yes on this, but I'd also like to remind the public that this is one of those that it is a tricky situation. We all, of course, support our law enforcement, but in my opinion, this is one of those things that you're going to wish you had it when you don't have it. So for $300,000, I'd rather keep one of our officers or many of our officers alive to return home to their families and continue serving our public. So, yes.
Councilmember Gremmel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rizzi?
Yes.
Councilmember Nesser?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Motion passes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you for your continued support. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We have no direction to staff, and our next regular scheduled work session is Monday, February 1st, and the next regular scheduled city council meeting is February 2nd. And I'd like to thank everyone for being here, and saying if council has no other additional requests, we'll adjourn the meeting.